Excellent. All right. Well, I think with no further ado, we're going to jump in. So, those times in your life when you have conversations with people and there's just something about it and it snaps right away. Or somebody sees you, you don't know this, somebody sees you and they approach you, or it's the other way. You see somebody, think, that's somebody I want to connect with. And a conversation starts, and the next thing you know, you're connected. Well, today's guest is one of those people. And I'll be totally transparent because I'm really good at that. Like, Scott and I haven't known each other that long. Yet, the length and the tenure of a connection is way less relevant than the alignment. So I want to welcome Scott Aaron coming to us for the Connecting Juice today. Scott, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ginger.
And Scott, what Scott caught my eye on Scott is that he says he's a connector also. Oh, that's great. A lot of people say they're networkers. Connecting is different. So that's the first question I want to throw your way, Scott. When you think about the difference of connecting and networking, what is that conversation, or what is that to you?
Connecting is creating meaningful and lasting relationships. Anyone can network online. It's easy to spend time on social media and post and send some blanket messages to people and connect and whatever it is and get into this messaging battle back and forth. But what I've learned in my 23 years in business ownership and coaching and consulting is that when you get really good at listening and not talking, you can really start to build that lasting relationship with those people. And I think the other thing that people sometimes get lost in is when they're thinking about connecting and networking, they're thinking about the end result being a sale. And for me, just to give you an example, earlier today, a gentleman hired me off of LinkedIn and there was no intent to sell. He sent me a connection request. He had been reading my book and I said, thank you for your support. Would love to hear more about you and your business and how we can support each other. Yeah. Got him on the phone, much like how you and I connected a few weeks back. And we had this great conversation. And he goes, and towards the end of the conversation, he goes, listen, you've piqued my interest. How do people work with you? And I basically just painted the picture and he goes, what do you need? So
excellent.
When you really connect with people, it's so much more different. Networking, like when I picture networking, I envision being in a dingy hotel conference room where everyone has their business cards. Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? And it's just passing them out. There's really there's no genuineness behind it. There's no juice. There's no real active engagement there. And that's what I love about connecting, because you're really taking an interest in the other person with having no attachment to anything that is going to come out on the other side, where it could be a new client, it could be a sale, or it could be just a great connection and friend.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Nail on the head. Raise your hand in the Zoom room if you love going to networking events. Okay. I want to know why. Would you tell me what makes a great networking event? Suzanne, put that in the chat if you would, please. Because I think that...
Can I speak on that?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So here's why I don't like networking events. To me, a networking event, I think about demographically who goes to networking events. And when I think about that, I think about, okay, when people are going to networking events, are they actually looking to network, or are they looking to sell me on something? So I don't think about why I want to go. I think about the intention of the people that are going to be there. So I also think about this, and this is the biggest thing for me. Outside of the most valuable commodity that we all have, which is our time.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a good investment of my time? But also, what is the relationship that these people have with money?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
when you have a prosperous conscience, you have to think about where are the high level people hanging out? Are they going to, a once a month little free meetup? Because here's what I now know, and I've been to enough of these. Free equals broke. Most free events attract broke people. Now, let me talk from an emotional standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So from an emotional standpoint, so that's the business standpoint. From an emotional standpoint, I understand why people like going to networking events. I thrive when I am around people.
Mm-hmm.
I love being around. I love bumping shoulders. I love physically being around people.
So this is not your time.
Well, no,
we're making
but yes,
it work.
We make it work.
Right.
Now,
right.
now for me, I'm very careful about, who gets my time and who I give my time to. So for me, I realize that networking and connecting are a number of games. And for me, if you've ever seen speed dating, you really don't have the appropriate time to really build a meaningful relationship with someone in an hour and a half when there's 50 people in the room. You end up connecting with maybe 2 or 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I would much rather start to build relationships on a platform like LinkedIn where you and I connected, where I can set up a nice personal 30-minute time slot with that individual or 15-minute time slot with that individual to get to know them, to see who they know, to tap into who I know. Because I found myself going to these networking events and they would take up 3 hours of my time, driving there, spending the hour and a half, 2 hours there, half hour back. And I said to myself, all right, I definitely connected with people, but I would much rather be in the comfort of my own home where I can connect with people all over the world on a platform like LinkedIn, and I can have 6, 7 conversations in that 4-hour time period that are meaningful, lasting, and you never know where they're going to go. Now, because of COVID-19, things obviously have shifted. Everyone has moved online anyway. The point of this, Ginger, is I just want to empower people to think about using your time to its best availability, even if it's a connecting event. Think about, where are my ideal people hanging out? Mm-hmm. Are my ideal people on a social media platform, or are they going to a networking event? Where am I going to get in front of or have the most conversational connection with those types of individuals? That's my whole point.
Sure. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Scott. Everybody does their own activities and there's no judgment here. It's really what works for you. And I would agree there are different mindsets and there are different attitudes and there are different groups of people. That's what makes this world so amazing, right? You can find the diamond in the rough. You can find the needle in the haystack. And why not stack your odds? Why not look at where the people you want to serve and impact are being? Again, this is not a judgment thing. It's not like a group of people just because they're broke are bad. I mean, we've all been there. At the same time, like if we want to vibe and we want to really serve, we need to find people who are ready to be served, willing to be served, and able to be served. And there's all kinds of metrics in that. And you also struck a nerve too, Scott, because my newsletter just went out yesterday and I talk about the difference between investing and spending. Maya's nodding her head. She read that one. There's a huge difference. And the most precious time commodity or most precious commodity is our time. We don't know how much we get. We'll never get back. We can't buy more. And so I'm with you. I look at, okay, who is probably going to be in the room or who do I know is going to be in the room, whether it's Zoom or physically? And is that an investment or is it a spend? That's why, my friends, I think we equate currency to time. Because it is this currency, right? If we invest, we get it back. When we spend it, it's Gandhi.
So let me piggyback off of that. So our relationship with money, our dialogue with money is everything. And I had a very, very shitty money mindset for a long time. And I realized that my relationship with money was a direct result of not how I was raised, but in the business that I had, it was all, making enough money to get money out so we could continue to move forward. So there was nothing really left to take home at the end of the day. And as I really started to visualize and focus on the kind of income that I wanted to create, what I truly deserved. Like for me, I thought $100,000 a year was a lot of money. I did.
Nothing to sniff at.
When I started making $100,000 a year, it wasn't like this drastic change, because I realized that in the economy when that was happening, it didn't get me as far as I wanted to. So I remember talking to a mindset coach that I was working with, and he said to me, he goes, and this guy, I mean, multiple 8-figure earner. He said, Scott, life begins at $250,000 a year. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, when you can start making $250,000 a year, now you can truly start leveraging the money that you're making. You can start investing in the money that you're making. So then this whole light bulb thing went off. It's like, okay, like I don't just want to spend, I want to invest. And then I started to have to visualize, right? I wanted to have my first $10,000 month, right? And then it happened. Then I wanted to have my first $10,000 week, and then it happened. Then I wanted to have my first $10,000 day, and then it happened. And it was because I started visualizing, and I started to, what you think about is what you most often will become. So I realized that my thoughts were really driving the actions behind what would happen. So networking is still so important to me. And I'll share this with you. So I was at a point in my business last year where I knew I needed to change. I needed a tribe. I needed to find a higher level caliber of individuals where I can learn and grow with, because, when you are the most successful person in your group, that's the most dangerous place to be, because you've basically reached the pinnacle. You always want to be at the bottom rung. So you're constantly learning. That's why millionaires hang out with billionaires, because they want to learn how they're doing it. So a good friend of mine, Chris Harder, he's got a wonderful business podcast. It's called For the Love of Money. It's one of the top money business podcasts in the world. And we met in a network marketing company that we were both in years ago. And I reached out for some advice just as a friend, because my coaching practice was growing, but I was still feeling like something was missing. And he goes, the only thing that's missing is your tribe. And he put together this high-level mastermind that you had to make a certain amount of money even just to be thought of getting in there. You had to fill out an application. Mm-hmm. And the investment was a down payment on a house.
And you thought to yourself, holy smack, where am I ever going to get that?
So I remember talking to Nancy, my future wife, and I said, this is a lot of money. And she goes, those are your old thought patterns telling you that. She said, this is an investment. She goes, if you don't do this,
what's the cost?
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I said, nothing. And she goes, what if you do this? I said, then anything's possible. So I made the investment last year.
And then you married Nancy.
And we're getting, I put a ring on it, obviously. But more importantly, my business doubled in 12 months.
Right.
And it was because of the people. I was networking with people who had businesses that were earning $15 to $30 million a year. And when you start rubbing, and that's the thing, I was in these rooms, 3 times last year for 4 days. We had dinner with Jay Shetty. We had dinner with Rob Dyrdek. We met these amazing individuals. I was rubbing shoulders with some incredible people where you could pick each other's brains and what are you doing that's working? Like what's really helped your business? Because now you're getting into the mind of the millionaire and you're realizing you're like, okay, I'm on the right path. I just need to start doing a little bit more of this, that, or the other to create that compounded result for my business. So networking is important, but be very specific about who you're networking with.
Right. And I want to unpack a whole bunch of that. Thank you, Scott, for that. At any time, Zoomers, juicers, put your questions, put your comments in the chat. Go for it. Please let me know what you're thinking, what you want to know. If we don't get to all the questions today, we will definitely follow up. Scott and I are fully accessible and happy to do that. So a couple things to unpack here. First of all, I know the language, Scott, that you're speaking, and I've invested robustly in myself as well, and I understand that. And so when we're talking all this money talk, like, first know that this is not about greed. This is about being able to serve, and this is about owning your worth. And so your worth and your value is what we're talking about here. And so when you're around these people, like I remember about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I joined a mastermind of Brendon Burchard. Some of you may know who he is. He's a big figure in the self-improvement industry. And I laid down 5 figures, like robust 5 figures for coaching. I thought I was out of my mind. At the same time, my fine husband, who I adore, who some of you know, he's like, you've got to do this because of this, this, and this, just like Nancy and Scott were having that conversation. And so whatever the dollar figure is less relevant than your mindset of, I want to be around these people. The reason that I wanted to be in that mastermind was that the coach, Brendon, promised that I would be around 40 millionaires. I think most of you know, anybody who knows me in this room knows that I'm not a greedy person. I like to give though. And the way I can give is to serve, because service leads to sales, leads to the life you want to have. And Scott, I know when you and I talked a couple of weeks ago and you had me on your podcast, like, oh, okay, let's talk a little bit about this. And when we throw out monies, it's not like we're trying to drop numbers to impress anybody, any of you. That's not what we're talking about here. The connections you build will be the ones who propel you forward. There's just no doubt about it. And there's about 3 layers I've found, Scott, and I'd love your thought on this. Is like, there's where we start, which is wonderful. It's entry level. It's where we all start. We get hungry. We know there's more. Lisa Hurley's in the room, executive director in econ development. I know that she knows the feeling. You know, she's worked her way up. All of you have in some way, shape, or form. And we all know what that feels like to be the entry level, to be the one going to the network event, because it is a great place to start when you don't know anybody. Like, start somewhere. As one might go, you got to start. You can't just like expect it. And then there's another layer where you're like, oh, okay, now I'm getting some things. And the juices really start cranking and you think, okay, I want to hang out with these millionaires. I want to be where these people are, because they're the ones also propelling motion and progress. And I'm going to learn from them. That's what I wanted from the mastermind for me. I do care that they make money, but to me, the money is proxy for they've got stuff figured out that I don't. So when I'm connecting, just like you're talking about, Scott, I want to go deep. I want it to be significant and not surface level. Like, please don't talk about the weather. Please don't bring up the latest sports game. Please don't comment on something that's banal. You're bigger than that. You're smarter than that. Use a common topic to open a conversation. A couple I recommend are something like music, food, something that has more to it, that more depth, more international. I mean, the picture behind Scott, I was asking him before we got on, because he had that on when we were on the podcast. Like, that's such a great thing. And it's a great big piece of art, just for the record. And like, think globally, regardless of who your market is, because the best clients, the best connections truly will have a much bigger perspective. Look, the world is in a really interesting spot right now in so many ways. More Molotov cocktails have gone off in the last 120 days than any of us could have possibly imagined. This is why, first of all, I'm so grateful for you all being here today. You're investing in yourself. Mark, it's great to see you showing up again from Toronto. Thank you. And all of you for being here. This is why this matters to Scott and I so much. As connectors, we want to give you tactics, strategies, ideas of how to establish, like Scott said, meaningful, deep connections right away. So Scott, let's fire seat this thing up. Let's go. Give us 3 really effective ways that you connect with people. Now, for the record too, before Scott answers that, because he could give us 100. I'm going to encourage you to check him out afterwards at scottaaron.net. Larry will put that in the chat. Look into his good stuff. He's got a podcast. He's got an academy, which that really turns me on, because the idea of schooling intensively is great. He's got a terrific book on LinkedIn. Some of you know that I'm huge into LinkedIn. That's how we connected. It's an amazing platform. I totally agree with you, Scott. It's a meaningful platform. It's gone through a big renaissance. So, yeah. Scott, give us 3 great tactics for connecting meaningfully in any arena that you want to.
So the best way to really create connection is number one, take a genuine interest in the person. That's the first thing. Mm-hmm. And when you take like the one thing that I break down with my clients, I always say, who's your ideal avatar? And a lot of people say, well, what's avatar? Well, no. your avatar is the person that you could have the most relatability or connection with. You know, who's the person that you can, without knowing them, without knowing their name, their age, whatever, just knowing what they do for a living or a profession, you could have like literally just jam back and forth. So really understanding who your ideal avatar is, because that's where you can create the most meaningful connection. So I'll take you through a little process of what I do on LinkedIn. And this can be done on Facebook. It could be done on Instagram. I'm going to be transparent. Facebook and Instagram are great for social entertainment. They will never do for business what LinkedIn can do for you. It's just not possible. If you actually, they just changed things on Facebook. Every 4th post on Facebook is now a sponsored business ad. And if you haven't noticed that, after we're done, go on Facebook, go on the app and count how many organic posts and then look for that sponsored. It's about every 4 posts now. Instagram is a reality TV show. That's where people go to look at other people's lives, wishing it was theirs. But why LinkedIn is so powerful is because people are on there to network. They're on there to connect. So once you define who your ideal avatar is, you can send them a nice message. And I call this the magic formula. It's a 3-part way to message someone very genuinely. And this is exactly how I message Ginger. Basically, you start off by mentioning the person's name. You know, hey, Ginger, great to be connected to you. Very easy, but it's something that people don't do. Now, on social media, especially LinkedIn, never, ever use software to message and connect with people. That is the easiest way to get kicked off the platform.
Right. So tell us what that means, Scott.
So you can pay for services. You can hire digital marketing agencies to basically put your connecting and your messaging on automation, where basically it connects with people for you, it messages them for you, and then you wait back and hear. That is the most disingenuine, inauthentic thing that you can do. It doesn't take that long to actually reach out to someone. The second part of the magic formula is creating a body of the message that is going to bridge the gap between you and the person and how you really relate to one another without knowing each other. So if I was connecting with Ginger, I could say, I noticed that you're also a business coach, as am I. Would love to hear about your practice, share more about mine to see how we can support each other here on LinkedIn. Now, what I've done there is 2 things. Number one, and you could do this again with anybody on any platform, you bridge the gap. I lowered the drawbridge where Ginger's going to read that message and she's going to say, that makes sense. He's a business coach. I'm a business coach. That's exactly why he's reaching out to me. But I also used one of the most important words in the English language.
Can I guess?
You can.
Support.
Correct.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So
I didn't get that one wrong.
So it's been scientifically proven
really
that when someone just reads the word support, it actually triggers a chemical release of something called oxytocin. So for those that don't know, your brain produces different chemicals, endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin, which is the feel-good brain chemical, and cortisol, which is our stress hormone. So when someone just reads the word support, they're immediately at ease and they feel like they know you.
Interesting.
Now, So basically you're drawing people closer to you. And again, if anyone has spent any time on any social media, I'm sure you guys have been victimized by those people that send those 18 paragraph long drunkalogs trying to sell you something or try to connect with you, check this video out, look at this link, schedule a call. And they're trying to have a one night stand instead of trying to date you. And the fact is you need to treat networking like dating. You need to see if you're—
Scott, I have a request. Can you speak more plain, please? Like, can you get to the point more? I'm just teasing you. This is great. It's a good analogy. It's a good metaphor.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Ginger, when you're networking with someone, the first thing you do is you sit down and you try to get to know the person. Tell me about your business. Where do you like to vacation? And if you guys ever remember when you first started dating your spouse or your significant other, that first date is so crucial because you're looking for the connection. You're looking for the spark. Right. And if there's a spark, guess what? It's going to lead to a second date or another conversation. Now, the third part of the magic formula is something called a CTA, a call to action. Right. You have to ask in order to get. You have to ASK to GET. So if you don't ask the person a question, you're not going to get an answer. So I would simply say, do you have any time this week or next week for a call? That's it. So you state their name, the reason for reaching out, and then you finish with a call to action. That methodology, and you can inject whatever piece of you guys want to in there that makes it you. You send that kind of message to anyone, whether it's via text, email, or social media, you will have people responding to get on the phone with you.
Right. What kind of responses? Thank you for sharing. That's a great magic formula. There's 3 right there. And I agree. I structure mine the same. It's open with a personalized greet because there's too many bots and mechanized things. The thing on LinkedIn, people are like, I noticed we have mutual connections. Please don't use that. It doesn't tell me anything about.
I don't care. I have 28,000 connections. I don't even know who you like. I'm like, I don't know Joe. I mean, he's a connection.
Right. And it doesn't give them a reason. Like when you said, well, you're a coach, I'm a coach. Oh, okay. So there's something we could immediately talk about. Correct. And I think that's a really, like you said, you put the drawbridge down. You can also, if you want to, you can make your own template. I mean, you can write this out and then just modify it each time. So you don't have to print it each time, type it out.
That's what I do. That's what I do. I interchange words.
Right, exactly. In fact, I share that with my coaching clients. Lisa's a coaching client. Yoko's been a coaching client. I share that with people because I make it easier on yourself. It's still authentic because you're still putting the effort forward, and somebody then knows you care. Keep it shorter than sweeter. So where do you go when they say yes, and where do you go when they say no, Scott?
When they say yes, you get them on the phone. If they say no, okay, if there's, anything I can do to support you and your business or you and your network, please don't hesitate to ask. And I always leave things in good graces. If someone says yes, then you get them on the phone. So I have a 5-step process of when I do speak to people on the phone. And it always starts with their story. So the person who speaks last is always going to win. So the most important thing to do is always get so if I was connecting with Ginger on the phone, hey, Ginger, great to connect with you. Tell me a little bit more about you and your business and what you're seeking to do with LinkedIn. That's it. I'm done. I shut up and I turn it to her.
Right.
So a lot of people, they talk too much and they listen too little. I do the opposite. I listen as much as I can because when you ask people questions, again, they're going to give the answers. Now, why this is so important, 2 reasons. Number 1, people love talking about themselves. And number 2, people love being listened to. When someone that you don't know gives you the floor to share, that makes that person feel so good. Oh my God, here's this person that doesn't even know me and they're turning the call right over to me. Right. Now, if it's a Zoom, you have to do some mental notes. But if you're doing a phone call, I always have I have literally stacks of note cards all over my office. And what I do is I take notes on the person's story. I'm looking for anchors. I'm listening that intently where I'm looking for anchors. I'm like, okay, I can relate to that. That's part of my story. And what I'll do is I'll anchor in those things from their stories into my story when it's time. So after they're done sharing their story, I would say, Ginger, thank you so much for sharing. Would you like to hear more about me and mine? And at this point, they're like, yeah, please. I mean, because you've taken the time to listen to them.
Right.
And then I share my story. But what I make sure that I do, number one, I don't ever sell. All I do is create connection. So, I share my story through the anchors of their story. Mm-hmm. Because now they're feeling relatable. They're feeling connected. Here's this person that doesn't know me. Number one, they gave me the opportunity to speak first. And number two, their story sounds a lot like my story. Because we all have similar stories. It's just you're not listening intently enough to the pieces that they're actually sharing. Most human beings are thinking about what they want to say next instead of paying attention to what the person is actually saying. So I always intently listen to that person. So I share my story. And so it's always their story, your story. And then I always share my deep passion, what I'm most passionate about. Because I want that person to know how serious I am about what I'm doing. Then I share something called an aha moment, where it could be, and Ginger, for example, the first question I asked her on my podcast, I said, what was your light bulb moment where your entrepreneurial fire and spark was lit? Because that's that kind of share. When someone shares their aha moment with you, it's going to one of the deepest places and most meaningful places in their life. So, my aha moment, just to share it with you guys really quickly, there's been many, but the one that really got me into online marketing was 2013. It was summertime. I was on vacation in Rehoboth Beach with my family, and my son was around 9.5 months old, and he was crawling around in the sand. I was sitting in my beach chair. My phone went off, and I picked it up, and it said, "Dear Scott, congratulations. You've just earned $600 this week online." And I literally almost dropped my phone in the sand, because I was a personal trainer training time for dollars. The only time I got paid is if I trained a client. I had never made money online sitting on a beach chair on vacation with my family while I was not at the gym. And I remember I went in to call a buddy of mine, and I'm like, Joe, you're not going to believe this. And I'm like, I just made $600. And he said, why are you crying? I'm like, I said, because I'm so happy. I said, you have no idea. I used to have to drive back and forth from vacation to train a couple days to earn money to then be able to afford the vacation while on vacation.
Not much of a vacation, is it?
And so when I share that kind of deep, meaningful reason of why I'm doing right now, that person, they're in. Mm-hmm. Then I always finish with another call to action. Mm-hmm. How can we best support each other? Mm-hmm. What is it that I can do for you?
Right.
That's exactly what I did with this gentleman earlier today. And he said, well, what you can do for me is tell me how I can work with you. So connecting, it's an art, it's a dance. But when you're not attached to the outcome, when you have no preconceived notion of this is what the end result needs to be, right, it's just free flowing, and you're just having a very organic conversation with another human being. It sounds simple when I'm saying this right now, because it is. As human beings, physiologically, we try to overcomplicate processes, because if something seems too good to be true and too easy, we are absolutely going to find a way to make it difficult. But it doesn't have to be difficult. Success, and going back to it's not about the money. It's not about the money. But if we want great impact, you have to have the monetary resources to impact that many people. And Robin Sharma says it best. He says, you want to make millions, go impact millions. You want to make billions, go impact billions of people. So that's my whole thing. The more people I impact, the more money I earn. It's just a side effect of the lives that I've been able to impact and change.
Right. And it all starts with one connection. It's not a volume game, but volume is reached when you do it authentically. and meaningfully and purposefully, just like you've been talking. Scott, this is great. We could go for hours. I want to make sure that if anybody has any questions for Scott today, that they get the chance to ask them. I know there's some great conversation in the chat. And again, if we don't get to everything in the chat, we'll definitely follow up with that. So if you have a question for Scott.
Well, Yoko did. So,
okay, great.
So Yoko's question was, if I don't get any responses, what is the minimum number of trying to get that person on the phone? All right. So I want you to look at one word in that sentence.
Trying.
Correct. I don't try to get anybody on the phone. So if someone doesn't reach back, okay, then I just move on to the next person. Next. So I don't ever try to do anything. I just let things happen. I'm always in forward motion where I have so many messages going out every day with all my new connections that, people are going to drop into the bucket. And I always have someone reaching back. I sent 10 messages yesterday. 4 people wrote back, and I have 4 calls booked next week. The other 6, they're lost because there's something that I can probably do for them, and there's something you can probably do for me, but they're not willing to get on the phone. This one woman, and this is what drives me bonkers on LinkedIn. Someone will send me a connection request, right? And I'll send them a message like, oh, thanks for connecting with me. Would love to hear about you and your business, anytime for a call. No, sorry, super busy. So I'm like, well, why did you send me a connection request? And then I had this other person say to me, pretty busy with life and kids. Let's circle back in November. And I'm like 5 months from now, November? And this is what I learned, is that we make time for what we feel is most important to us. And for me, I always make time for anyone that's willing to get on the phone with me because it's important for me to connect with people.
All right. Excellent. So there's your invite, friends. He means it. It's true. It happened within a couple of days once we connected on LinkedIn for he and I. So it's testimony. I'm going to add one piece onto Scott's fantastic, enthusiastic style and education. Scott, thank you for sharing all that. Please be encouraged when people do reach out and truly learn to detach. Let things go, because there are 7 billion other people on the planet. Again, it's not a judgment thing, and don't take it personally when we say, well, it's personal, it's business. Well, we generally are what we do. And so make sure that that's aligned too. Make sure you're personally connected with what you do. You can tell by Scott's intensity that he loves his work, and his work is who he is, and he's serving because he knows how impactful it is for him because he's been there. So some of you know this already. We're all continuing to keep learning this. Be encouraged by the opportunity that everything is possible with a connection. So many of you, all of you, I look around all of you. Suzanne, I think you're the only one I haven't been in the room with. Yoko, I feel like we've been in the room since we worked together in a coaching, and it can feel that way if you focus on true connection. A network, I like to say, is something you build. A connection is something you make. That connection is the verb. It's the action. It's the effort, which you do need to put into your every day if you want it to return to you. It's that investment or that spend. Scott has eloquently and enthusiastically outlined, like, look, these are some ways you can actually do this. This is great. I like that about you already, Scott, because we're very similar. And just because we're high wattage doesn't mean we're not paying attention or we're bulldozing. It means that it's simply our style. Saber Maple is in the room, world-class graphic designer. I love this woman. I've known her for more than a decade because her style is very calming and gentle. And I need friends like that. So, and I've told her this before, like, look at the variety around us. It's so amazing. You know what people say? It takes all kinds. I don't know if I buy that, but we've got them. So what are you going to do about it? Who are you going to connect with? It's always a choice. Scott, tell people how they can best get a hold of you and what's up next for you.
So scottaaron.net, my website, is where you can find out about me and my services and my books and my podcast. Social media, I'm also very omnipresent across all platforms. Obviously, LinkedIn, you can find me. The easiest way is just search Scott Aaron, Forbes, Forbes. I'm part of the Forbes Coaching Council as well. And on Facebook, it's Scott Aaron. And on Instagram, my handle is @ScottAaronLinkedIn. And would love to connect with you guys.
Yes, I would encourage all of you to do so, because what he shares also is worthwhile. You're going to keep getting great education in his style. And so I have some more time. If anybody wants to stay, Scott, do you want to hang out for a few more minutes?
Yeah, I just wanted to, Suzanne had a question about how do you politely decline when someone keeps reaching out and you don't see that there's a connection to work together.
Great.
So Ginger, is it okay if Suzanne unmutes herself so I can have a conversation?
I will do it right now for her.
Awesome.
And I think, Larry, can you do it? Let's see here. Suzanne, go ahead and try and unmute yourself. There we go. Okay, let her rip.
So yeah, just give me a little backstory on it, Suzanne.
Okay, so I am a salon consultant, and thank you for taking my question, by the way.
Absolutely.
And there is a very lovely woman out there who works for an how do you say that?
MLM?
MLM, like, wants to work together, and I'll be, we'll do an interview live, and we can post it on your Facebook page, and it'll be posted on my Facebook page. And it's just not a connection. I'm not necessarily telling stylists, oh, you need to have a separate business and, start selling Mary Kay or whatever MML you want to sell. It's just not a fit. That's not, I mean, I would support a salon professional if they wanted to do that and generate a second stream of income. I'm all about that, but I don't tell people what that second stream of income needs to be.
I agree.
And so I've tried to politely decline and
so let's just break this down just a little bit. All right. So number one, where did she connect with you on?
LinkedIn.
Okay. What was her initial message to you?
We were in a networking class, much like this one is how we met.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first connection was, oh, it was nice meeting with you. We didn't get time to really talk. I'd like to, let's talk. So we set up a call separately, and that's how I learned what her business was.
And then she tried to prospect you for her MLM business.
Yes.
Okay. And it's probably what, skincare, hair care, one of those things, right?
Yes, it's another skincare line. Yeah.
Okay. And then how did you politely let her go? What was the verbiage that you used?
Well, I thanked her for her time, and she was like, what kind of skin type do you have? And I can send you samples. And I politely
said, all right.
She wasn't even listening.
Yeah. So basically that's her egoic mind, trying to just continue to pull at you. So, I do believe in politely declining,
mm-hmm.
but you have to do it in a very direct manner where mm-hmm. your verbiage is so clear, you've shut the door.
Okay.
Meaning saying, Lauren, I really appreciate you and the thought of giving me this opportunity, but it is absolutely, so using specific mm-hmm. and specific verbiage, this is absolutely not a fit for me, okay. but I wish you continued success in your endeavors. So you're wishing her continued success, but yes. you said this is absolutely 100% not a fit for me. Because okay. at that point, if she tries to come back to you again,
yes,
block and delete her.
Okay.
Honestly, you don't need that energy in your space.
Okay.
And I did network marketing for a while too, and I ran it very successfully, earned a lot of money, but I did it the right way, which was still building connection and rapport. And when someone said no, it meant no. It didn't mean come back at me again, try again. So if someone can't just, and that also means, guess what? She's not listening to you. Mm-hmm. She's not listening to and reading your words. So politely, but very specifically and directly decline.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that help?
Yeah, it helps because, like right now there's another message that's waiting out there that I just haven't responded to. And I don't feel like that's right either. Like silence isn't real. No, it's not professional. It's not, I'm not handling it the way I want to handle it. So
listen, in the future, if you don't want to be prospected by network marketers and you can kind of sense that they're in network marketing, just let them know up front when they message you the first time, just say, hey, so-and-so, I see you're in network marketing. congratulations on, your choice and path of business, but I don't participate or talk to anyone in the profession. I'm focused on me and my business, but continued success. So again, just ending it right there where you're letting that person know you're not recruitable and you're not open to even hearing.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool.
Right on. Excellent. Great question, Suzanne. Anybody else have another question? We've got, I love that, Scott. Thank you for sharing that. It's always going to be more respectful. It can feel blunt. At the same time, think about it the other way. Like, would you ever do that to somebody? And if the answer is no, then say yes to yourself by saying no to somebody else.
Ginger, compare it back to dating, right? Suzanne, you went out with a guy and you knew it wasn't a good fit. And they're like, all right, I'll go out with you again. I'll go out with you. All right, we'll go out on a third time and a fourth time. And before you know it, it's been like a month and a half and you're spending time with the wrong person. It's the same thing. It's good to, blunt is a really good way to put it, but don't worry about the feelings of the other person, because however, how they choose to receive your words emotionally, it's how they're digesting it. You can't control how someone's going to respond to it, but the more direct and blunt you are, the less likely they're going to come back and try to pester you.
You can also write some of these thoughts down. Just like Scott and I both apparently use scripts that we then personalize. You could write down, well, what do I really want to say to this person, Suzanne? And say, okay, I really just want them out of my hair. Okay, so get that out. My tactic is I write down what's on my mind and then I leave it overnight. And then I come back to it the next day. I remove the emotion. What am I really trying to accomplish? Hey, Suzanne, I appreciate that XYZ company is your business. I'm absolutely not interested. You can put something like with all due respect if you want, but really, if they're not listening, might as well just say, thank you very much. No, thank you. I'm not interested. Good luck. Goodbye. There's nothing wrong with that because it's still polite and it's very clear. So that was a great question. Yeah, definitely. So, all right. Sabra says, one line I often use in that situation is, I don't want to waste your time or mine, so I feel like I should let you know. Great. That's a great way to do it. If you want to amp that up even more, is I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to waste my time. And so I'm going to be clear instead of, I feel like I should let you know, which I totally get it, Sabra. That's so your style, and it's a beautiful way to put it. And most people will get that. But for the people who won't, Suzanne, like the one that you're talking about, I'm not going to waste any of your time or mine. This isn't the conversation for me. Thank you very much. So yes, there's so many productive ways to do it. Scott, this is great. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up today. It's great to see you all. Kimberly, I see you. Good to see you, my friend. And all of you, appreciate you making time. Next month, we're going to be back again. Lawrence Henderson is our guest. Stay tuned for that. You'll get the notice. Again, reach out to Scott, connect with him, scottaaron.net. Got lots of great resources. In fact, I think I'm going to order your book, Scott, because I love LinkedIn. I want to know more. So it's a good one. So take good care, my friends. Always remember, it's a great day to connect. I appreciate you, and we'll see you again soon.